Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Kodi Samaprabha. Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarva Karyeshu Sarvada. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha. Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Gurave Sarva Lokanam Vishashe Paparoginam. Nidaye Sarva Vidyanam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam. Namami Bhagavad-pada Shankaram Loka Shankaram. Apara Karuna Sindham Jnanadam Shantarupinam. Sri Chandrasekhara Gurum Pranamami Mutanvaham. Tadandeva Sivaryancha Jeevodharana Tatparam. Shri Jayendra Gurum Pujyam Pranamami Mutanvaham. Chaturdashvaya Praptam Sanyasam Sumahamatim. Namaami Shankararambham Shivajendra Saraswati. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam. Asmatacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara. Swasti Vachanam. Om Shri Kanchi Kamakoti Parayana Jagadguru Shri Shankaracharya Shri Charanayoh Shri Pranamah Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Shri Mahatripura Sundari Samhita Shri Chandramaulishwaraya Namaha Swasti Sri Madakila Bhumandala Alankara Trayastrim Satkori Devata Sevita Shri Kamakshi Devi Sanata Shri Madekambranata Shri Mahadevi Sanata Shri Astigirinata Sakshatkara Paramadishtanam Satyavradanamakita Kanchi Divya Kshetre Sharada Mata Sustithanam Apturita Sudarsa Maturya Kamalasana Kamini Dhammilla Samphulla Mallika Malika Nishchandamakaranda Jare Sauvastika Vangnigumba Vizrumbhanananda Duntiridamanesi Mandalanam Navarada Dvaita Vidya Vinodarasikana Nirantaralankriti Krita Shanti Danti Bhuvnam Sakalavana Chakra Pratishthapaka Shri Chakra Pratishtha Vikhyadesholankrithana Nikila Pashanta Shanda Kantakotpadanena Vishadikrita Veda Vedanta Marga Shanmada Pratisthapakacharyanam Srimad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Varya Shri Jagat Guru Srimad Shankara Bhagavad-padacharyanam Adhisthane Simhasana Abhishekta Srimad Chandrasekharendra Saraswati Samyamindranam Adhisthane Simhasana Abhishekta Srimad Jayendra Saraswati Samyamindranam Ante Vasivarya Srimad Shankar Vijayendra Saraswati Shripadanancha Chanarvindayo Sashtanga Pranamam Samarpayamaha. Hari Om. Kanchi Kamakoti Seva Foundation, Midwest Chapter, welcomes you all to this month's Kamakoti Parayana Mandali. As you all know by now that we have been having this Parayana Mandali for the past couple of years, and we are having monthly programs and lectures on various topics. So today we have Shri R.V.Padmanabhan from our own Midwest Chapter, who will be giving a talk lecture on Rig Veda. Shri Padmanabhanji is very familiar face in all our Midwest circles. He has been one of our core organizers in all KKSF events, be it the Maharudrams or Chandi Homams or Veda Parayanams. Not only KKSF, he's also the most sought after person in other religious events related to temples in the Chicagoland area, or any Laukika events, be it related to Ritvik coordination, planning events with meticulous details, Homakundam preparations, or organizing Gomatas or Go Puja, or any other miscellaneous activities. He's an excellent leader and very resourceful and extremely dedicated to all these activities. Additionally, he has a huge passion and interest in Sanskritam. He has an MA in Sanskritam from MIT Institute of Indic Knowledge Studies in India. He's also a Samskritabhadi Karyakarta and also teaches various Sanskritam classes. So without much ado, I hand it over to Shri Padmanabhanji. Hari Om.
Thank you, Sriram. Setu, can you enable sharing?
Datta, it is come up now.
सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां शङ्खरूपेण मत्सिद्धं पङ्कीकृतमभूदया किङ्करीयस्य सामाय शङ्कराचार्यमाश्रये अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. My humble namaskaram to all the acharyas and a special namaskaram to Shri Veda Bharati, Shri Ramanujacharya, whose influence is there in my talk that I am going to talk about understanding Rig Veda. He was our professor in the MIT IIKS when we did our masters. It's his ocean of information, and anything that you can take from his, you can take from this is I totally owe it to him. If there are any mistakes, it's completely mine. With that, I also want to thank Shri Ram. I don't know, he said so many things about me. I don't know whether it's I'm qualified to be there. So let me start my slideshow here. So you can see that, right, Setu?
Yes, we can see your slide, understanding Rig Veda.
Yeah. So the topic that I chose myself is for this presentation is understanding Rig Veda. I need to thank Setu for prompting me. For a long time, he has been asking me, and he gave me a talk. He asked me to select a topic, and I just picked up this topic. When we went through this class in the MA program, we found a lot of interesting information about Rig Veda. I mean, most of us, some of us may know about all this information already, or some of us may know in discrete pieces. I was trying to put together this presentation so that all these terminologies, all the Veda Vishayas, everything is understood properly, so that we can be more resourceful in gaining some knowledge and taking up further and exploring this knowledge, because this is a knowledge which is given to us it has been given to us, and we need to learn, and we need to keep on learning. So to start with, I'll start with an introduction to Vedas. So go with the format like I'll start with the introduction to Vedas, then get into Rig Veda, and then all the portions of it. I'll just give the theoretical explanation of this. Definitely, I'm not going to chant any mantras, and also I'm not going to teach any mantras either. So that is not here. It's just the theoretical aspect. So just understand the layout of Rig Vedas, the Vedas, in particular Rig Veda for today. So what are Vedas? I think in this forum we had a lot of discussions about this, but I'll just summarize it very, very shortly. The first thing is we start with Anantavai Vedaha. So it has no beginning and no end. So that means it is eternal. It is always, it's there. So across the time period, so we have years, Kali Yuga and Manvantaras and all those periods. Across the time period, even after the Pralaya comes, Vedas are still there. And when the next creation happens, Vedas continue to be there. So it is an eternal source of knowledge for us. And that's why it's called Anantavai Vedaha. It's a small story also. When Bharadwaja Rishi, who was learning Vedas after he did his sadhana for about 100 years. And when his life was about to end, he requested for learning more Vedas. So then Indra gave him 100 years, and he did another 100 years. Then about 300 years he studied Vedas, and then towards the end of the 300 years, Indra came and asked him, so what are we going to do? So, and Bharadwaja Rishi asked him, actually, Indra, that how much I learned. So Indra said, showed 3 mountains, and he just took 3 handfuls of sand from those mountains, and then he gave it to Bharadwaja. He showed it to Bharadwaja Muni and said, this is what you have learned in 300 years. So that tells us how vast this ocean of knowledge is, and how much is that we can learn, and how much we can, how eternal and how vast the sciences. The second point is Apaurushayatva. So that is Purusha is a person actually. So we see that, for example, Kalidasa. So when Kalidasa wrote Kalidasa wrote Kumarasambhava, which talks about the story of Subramanya, Parvati's wedding to Shiva. So he adapted it from the Skanda Purana. The incidents from the Skanda Purana where it has been described about Shiva's marriage to Parvati with the Himagiri Putri, and then Subramania's Jananam and Tarakasura Vadam, and all those stories are there in the Skanda Purana. He took it up himself, and then he wrote his own additions with his upamas. He wrote his own examples. He imposed his examples on the original story, and he produced it. So that is the Purusha. So the Purusha is there. The Purusha has something in his mind. Is caused through the samskara. So with his understanding, with his imposition on the story, he wrote the Kumara Sambhavam. So that is a Purushena Grita Grantham. So that's a Paurushaya Grantham. But at the same time, all the works that we have, all the shastras, everything that we have is attributed to some Purusha. So, for example, Badarayana wrote Brahma Sutra. Bhagavad Gita was written by Maharishi Veda Vyasa, and so on. But the Vedas are not considered to be a Paurushaya Grantha, because it was absorbed by the rishis. We call the rishis as mantra dashtaraha. So the people, they see the Vedas through their yogic powers. They have jnana through the yogic jnana. They understand the Vedas, and they give it to us without any imposition of their ideas. So they just observe the mantras and they just transmit for the benefit of the mankind. So the Vedas are considered as apaurushayatum, because there is no Purusha no person has written this. It is just observed and it is transmitted to us by the Maharishis. And the third one which I wanted to talk about Veda is this very special padam in Sanskritam, which says, in Sanskritam, most of the padams, I would say most, have an origin which has a dhatu through which we can explain that padam. So for the padam called Veda, the Veda can be inferred from 4 different dhatus, and the 4 different dhatus also can rightly explain the word of Veda. So with jnane is the first one, the knowledge. So Veda is a source of knowledge. I mean, it is the authentic source of knowledge. So with jnane explains that it is a knowledge-based system. The Veti is the padam that is used for the Veti is the kriya padam that is for the with jnane in that context. And there is another word called vidyate. That means it is existing there. So we can say vrikshaha vidyate. So it is there. So here we say vid satayam is the vid is other dhatu which is used as to explain that existence is there. So as we saw before, Vedas existed across the pralayas, across every time. It is eternal. So that also it's proven here. And vidra labhe, the words are vindati, vindate. Those are the words which come out of it. So it is beneficial for those who chant, and it has a lot of it gives us whatever benefits we seek for. So that's explained through that word. And the fourth word we can explain is with vicharane. So of all the inquiries are happening, the first 2 sections of the Veda talk about the karma vicharana, karma kanda vichara, mimamsa inquiries are happening, and the last 2 sections talk about the atma vichara, which is self-inquiry. So all the vicharana, that is all the inquiry is based on it. So through these 4 words, we can explain the word Veda. And it is swaratmakam. It has a lot of, it consists of swaras, mainly 3 of them in most of the Vedas. So they are Udata, Swarita, and Anudata. If you happen to see a Veda textbook, you will see some words without any lines in them. Some words will have like an apostrophe on the top, and that we call it as a Swarita. And some words which have a line under that, which we call it as Anudata. And we just, when Anudata is pronounced, it is pronounced in a lower tone, and the Swarita is pronounced in a little higher tone, and the Udata is equally pronounced. So, the swaras were very important in Vedas, because by mixing the swaras, the meaning can get changed. So I'll give you a simple example, which is the word Veda itself. So if you look at the Veda word in the first, just give me a second. So we call this as the Udata, and this as the Swarita here. So when the Veda, it is there. So when the Adi, first letter is a Udata Akshara, it indicates Veda. So that's why whenever the Pada is there, with the Veda is there, the way which is always in Uddata, and that anything that falls, the da is in a Swarita or anything else, then we call it as a Veda. Veda is a real Veda text on it. But when the way is in a lower, we have underlined under that, when it becomes an Anudata Padam. The way is an Anudata Padam, and the da is in a Swarita, then it becomes the Darba grass. So the meaning is totally different. So that is why that swaras have to be carefully adhered to. So the benefits of Vedas, in the Sayana Bhashyam, we see that Ishtaprapya Anishta Nivrateyoho Alaukika Upaya Bodakaha Vedaha. So whatever you ask, Ishtaprapya, whatever you like and you ask for it, and Anishta Nivrati, all the things that you don't want and you want to get rid of this, for that, and Alaukika Upaya Bodakaha, that means it's all the things which are beyond human knowledge, that is like Atma or all the internals of understanding of the Srishti and all those things. Alaukika Upaya Bodakaha. This is a Veda. So these are the these are what Veda in a single line that we can explain. So for whatever benefit we need, getting the desired, removal of the undesired, and the one that makes us understand the beyond the worldly needs is Veda's definition. And what is Vedatvam? So that is also explained in the Sabara in the Sabara Bhashyam. So it is said that Pratyakshena Anumityava Yastupayo na Buddhyate Enam Vindati Vedena. Just a second, let me. Oops. Enam Vindate Tasmat Vedasya Vedata. So whatever is understood beyond Pratyaksha and Anumana. So what is meant by Pratyaksha and what is meant by Anumana? So in the Pratyaksha principle, like whatever we perceive through our sense organs. So I can see somebody standing before me, or I can smell there is a good food near me, or I can hear a beautiful song. So whatever I perceive through my sense organs is what is called as a Pratyaksha Pramana. So when there is a Pratyaksha Pramana, I don't need Vedas to explain that to me. I can understand through my own sense organs. So similarly, I hear a car coming to my house, then I see that somebody is coming to my house. So I basically, using some knowledge, I understand, I do some inference. That is called Anumana Pramana. So those are the two Pramanas. If you can understand an object through an Anumana Pramana, or if you can understand an object through Pratyaksha Pramana, then Veda is not needed in those areas. But beyond that, Atma, so we can't understand through Pratyaksha or Anumana Pramana. So we need some other sources of knowledge to explain that. So that is what the Vedatvam of the Vedas talks about. That's where we use Vedas to understand it. So it's beyond the Pratyaksha and Anumana peripheral of the knowledge systems. To quote from Bhagavad Gita, Vedaishcha sarvair ahameva vedya, Vedantakrit Veda Videva chaham. So that's what Bhagavan says. I am alone to be known by all the Vedas, and I also created I authored the Vedanta, and I am the knower of the meaning of the Vedas. So we have basically, it's a discovery of Bhagavan himself. It happens through the Vedas. From a Shastram perspective, Dharmam Jigyasamanana Pramanam Paramam Shruti. Pramanam is the authentic source of knowledge. So Dharmam Jigyasamanana. So those who want to understand the Dharma, Vedas are the Pramana. Vedas are the ultimate Shruti Vedas are the ultimate text to understand. So then the Vedas are divided into 4 parts. So we see a reference in the Vishnu Purana for that. So Veda Vyasa separated the 4 Vedas and gave it to 4 of his disciples. So Tatra Rigveda, he gave it to Paila. Vaishampayana got Yajurveda. Jaimini got Samaveda. Atharva Veda was given to Sumanta Maharishi. So these are the 4 Vedas that was as 4 sections of the Veda. The Vedas were 1 before, and Vyasa separated them into 4 and gave it to 4 of his disciples. But there are 3 prakaras that are spread across the Vedas, across the 4 Vedas. The prakaras are Rich, Yajus, and Sama. In the rich, basically the prakara rich is about basically the method where the mantras are in a metrical composition. It follows some chandas for it, for example. So that it is the syllables are maintained according to the Chanda Shastra, and it is very structured in that way. In the Yajus Prakara, we see the mantras are in a prose format. So there is it will be like a long paragraph and so on. In the Sama Prakara, the same mantras are there, but the Rik mantras are there, but it has a musical intonation towards it. So it's a Ganamaya mantra. So that is a Sama Prakara. So these are the three Prakaras spread across the four Vedas. So whichever Prakara is high, then that Veda takes that name. So the rich Prakara is high in the Rig, in the Rig Veda, the Yajus Prakara is high in the Yajur Veda, the Sama Prakara is high in the Sama Veda. In the Atharva Veda, we see that the rich Prakara is also high. So that's one, I think. So the Prakaras are different and the Vedas are different. So that's to understand that. And that is explained by the mantra that is in the Vedas, which is called as the Aditya Mandala Parabrahmopasana. So which talks about the sun. The sun is the Pratyaksha Devata that we see every day. So how is the sun described as how is the sun described in those Veda? Basically, so you have a sun which has a circle around it. So the circle is called as a mandalam. So that is the peripheral of the sun. That mandalam is considered as a Rig Veda. So mandalagam richa. So the mandala is a rich Rig Veda. Then the sun gives rays and it shines across it. So that archi dipyate. So this is a tejas that is in the sun. And that sun, that the tejas through which all of us are living, and all the beings are happy, all those things are happening, and that source is the samani. The samani is the archi that is dipyate. It's a sama. That's a sama prakara. And the Surya Purusha. So in the mantra we say Deya Sada Savitru Mandala Madhyavarti Narayana. That mantra we say that we meditate as sun as Vishnu, Vishnu as Vishnu who lives in the sun, right? So Vishnu as a Purusha in the sun. That way the Purusha is there, and that is the Yajush Prakara. So these are the three Prakaras, and so then he says, the Veda says that Yajusham Purushasthani Yajugumshi, then Trayeva Vidya Tapati. In that Aditya Hiranmaya Purusha. So these are the three Vidyas that are there in the Aditya Mandalam. So the first is a Rik Prakara, which is a Mandalam. So keep on the word Mandalam, because Mandalam is a word that is used only in the Rig Veda also. So that is why the Rik Prakara is also referred to as Mandalam. And the tejas that is coming out of it is in the Sama Veda, Sama Prakara, sorry. And the Yajus Prakara is Purusha. That's the Surya Purusha is called as Yajus Prakara. So now let's get into Rig Veda. So Richam Stutau. So just like we saw the Veda as root word comes from the word Vijnane and all those things, the Rig is the padam that comes from the word rich. Rich means Stutau, that is, it's for praising. So Richyate Suyate Anaya iti Rig. So that is how it is defined as the Shastra. Similarly, the other Vedas also have definitions. I think we'll go through that whenever we'll have some time during this talk. So I'll start with Rig Veda right now. The thing about the interesting thing about Rig Veda is the organization of mantras. It has been done very, very methodically, and it is very structured, and it is done in a very orderly way. We'll see how that is done, and then the benefits of chanting Rig Veda is generally said as hitam. The hitam means welfare. So there are a lot of remedies for any problems that we face through, methods to solve any problems that we can address to. And Pravriti is for this world, worldly things. Worldly things. It has given us a lot of importance to that. Also for the Nivriti. Nivriti is for the Moksha Marga. That also we can see a lot of mantras that are being used there. For the Purushata, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, and the Palam, the mantras are the Rig Veda is a great beneficial source of knowledge for that. And the Rinatraya Vimochanam. Rinatraya Vimochanam is when we are born we are born with three loans. Devaranam, Pitrurunam, and Rishiranam. So we eliminate that through Brahma Yajna and other activities. So that's and then also the Rinatraya Vimochana mantras are all there in the Rig Veda. It leads us to a fulfilled life. So the Rig Veda sections, I mean, Rig Vedas sections are defined by something called as shakas. The shakas are usually termed as branches of Rig Veda, but the shakas have the mantras are the same, except the rishis have done it in different formats. But the mantras could be slightly different between there may be slight variation between each of the shakas, depending on how the rishis observed it and then how they propagated to their students. So the shakas are all governed by a rule of grammar called Pratishakyam, Sakam, Shakam, Prati. So the Pratishakyam defines on how the swaras are pronounced, how the words are split, and those kind of little grammatical pieces of the Vedas are controlled in each shaka, and each shaka has a Pratishakyam associated with it. The five of the famous Rig Veda shakas are Shakala Shaka, Bhaskala Shaka, Ashvalayana, Shankayana, and Mandukya Shaka. Rest of them are all available. Not available in other sources today. So these five shakas are available, and some of these shakas have sub-shakas under them. So they're like Shakala Shaka has Muddala, Galava, Saliya, Vatsya, Shaishiri. Those are five sub-shakas under that. And similarly, Bhaskara Shaka has Bauddha, Agnimatra, Parashara, Jatapunya, and so on. So these are all the Rishi names also. The shakas are the names of the rishis are used in the shaka names most of the time. So these are all the rishis who took the shaka and then they adopted the practice of and also it is also said that the rishis went to different places and then they started propagating this mantras in those areas. So sometimes you see same mantras chanted differently in two different places. It can happen because of the shaka difference that is happening between one zone and another zone. And that's how the Rishi Parampara was established. So from an org chart perspective, if you want to say, how did this shakas come through? So Vyasa gave it to Paila, and Paila gave it to two of his sishyas, Indra Pramitihi and Bashkala. And Indra Pramiti gave it to his sishya Mandukeya. Mandukeya gave it to Satyashravaha. Satyashravaha gave it to Satyahitaha, and he gave it to Satyashriyaha. And this is Shakalya Maharishi, Devamitra Shakalya. And Ratirata Shakapurvi and Bashkalya Bharadwaja are the disciples of Satyashraya. And I should just do this way for a minute. Mudgalaha, Galavaha, Kaliyaha, Vatsyaha, Shaishirihi are Sishyas of the Devamitra Shakalya. And Bashkalaha's Shishyas are Badhya, Agnimataraha, and Jatukarnyaha. So if you look at the previous slide over there, you should see almost matching all these rishis, Maharishi, all these rishis will have shakas under them. So, and that's the variation that we see on that. But the mantras will be the same except minor differences here and there. That is on the shakas, that is on the branches of the Rig Veda. So in all the four Vedas, we see there are four different sections. Should minimize this. Okay. We have four different sections. There's a mantra section, which is called as a Samhitha, Brahmana section, which is the usage of the mantras, the Aranyaka, and the Upanishad. From a learning perspective, all these four sections have to be learned for a Sampurna Veda Dhyana in the Gurukula. So let us say somebody gets an Upanayana at the age of 8. For the next 12 years, he just takes this Veda learning for in this 12 years. He's supposed to learn the mantra, Brahmana, Aranyaka, and Upanishad. However, the mantra and Brahmana Adhyanam is happening to the brahmacharya time, and then when he becomes a grihastha, will be using the mantra and the Brahmana, because mantra will be for all the Adhyana Krama, to remind and to all the Parayanams and everything. In the Brahmana, the mantra usage will be used mainly in the yajnas. So these are the two that will be used. And when he reaches the Vanaprastha, that is when he comes to the point where he has to go into he has to go and work on his internal vicharas. That is the time the Aranyaka is used. So Aranyam Pratigatva. So they go to the forest and then do the prayoga of the mantras are said. The Aranyaka prayoga is happening during the Vanaprastha time. And the Upanishad also is for the Vedanta Vichara, Atma Vichara. So that also happens in the Sannyasa Ashrama. So that is in the fourth stage of the life of the person. So the beauty about this whole structure is, I just wanted to quote my Acharya, who usually says this statement. So any other Shastra or science that you learn, even if you have 3 or 4 PhDs in physical sciences or in Nyaya Shastra or anything else, there is no requirement for somebody to remember what the thesis was written. Maybe let's say a person does a thesis, does a PhD in 25, and at the age of 60, there is no requirement that the person has to remember what he did the thesis on. He could have forgotten what he did, or his knowledge, whatever he found may not be true during the later stage of his life also. Whereas Vedas is the only Shastra that we have where a person who learns at the age of 20, whatever he has learned, he has to preserve that until his last breath, without losing any swaras, any aksharas, any chandas, any matras, anything like that. So it has to be memorized, it has to be chanted every day, and it has to be protected. So Vedo Nityam Adhiyatam is what Acharya says. So similarly, that has to be protected till his last life. So that is such a valuable Shastra. So that's the difference between Vedas and the other Shastras that we come to know. So we'll start with Samhita. So what is Samhita? What is the Samhita portion of the Vedas? What do they talk about? Samhita is also known as mantra, and it is the first section of each Veda, and it is in a metrical format. So it is in a metrical format. It's like a poem. So in a metrical form, what is that? What are the advantages having in a metrical format? Because it is easy to remember, and whenever it is transmitted to another person, the words will be transmitted, and the feedback, everything, they can easily understand based on the syllables and how many times, whether the syllables are given the right pronunciations and right stress and all those things are there. So that is very easy to track. So the Chandas format is used for the Samhita. Is used in Samhita. There are 3 different forms of learning for mastering the Samhita. So there's a Kramanta Parayana. So for the Kramanta Adhyayana, from a Kramanta Adhyayana, there are 3 things that one person has to learn to understand for mastering. In the Samhita, the Prakara is Chandas based. So whatever is the verse that as the Rishi had seen us and has given to us, it has to be observed and it has to be reproduced in the same format and with the same Chandas. We'll go through Chandas later down the slide. And the usage is called as a Nirbhujam. Nirbhujam means without any splits. There is no adulteration, no manipulation, nothing. It has to be whatever is there in the original text has to be said without any splits. By doing the Samhita Parayana, the benefits are said to be, a person gets worldly benefits, material benefits that he can gain from that. On the Pada Parayana, the next is the Pada Parayana. In the Pada Parayana, words are split, and the Pada follows the Pratishakyam base. So the Shakya is the Rishi, as we saw before, the Pratishakyam is from the Shaka of the Vedas. Each Shaka has a different rules, the grammatical rules governing that. So based on that, the words of the Samhita are split into different words. And it is called Pratrannam. The Pratrannam is the word where usage of the Padaparayanam of the Vedas. And by the Patanam and Padaparayanam, a person gets Swarga Kama as the benefit. Swarga as the benefit. He gets the benefit of the Swarga. The third one is the Krama Parayana. In the Krama Parayana, The requirement is using through the sandhi knowledge. The word sandhi is used when two letters are joining to each other. So when two words are joining, so that when the last letter of the first word and the first letter of the second word will act depending on how the nature of the words are. So that is the sandhi knowledge that is required. And the usages both, because sometimes you will use the nirbhuja prayoga and sometimes you can use the prithrana prayoga. And the benefit is also both. You get the worldly benefits as well as the Swarga Kama benefits. Now, just to give a very small example on what a Samhita and what a Pada and what a Krama is, I just took a very small Samhita line, which is Namah Shivaya Cha. So that when you have the Namah Shivaya Cha, so when you say in the Samhita Pata, you just say the right terms. And when you do it in the Pada Pata, you just split Namaha, Shivaya, and Cha. So as different split, as these are words split into different lines. In the Kramapada, we just use a formula something like 1, 2. There are 3 words in it. So we'll say 1, 2, 2, 3. And when you have a fourth word, you will say 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, and 4, 5, and so on. Sometimes you will say 5, 85. So some of those things also can happen. So that way, if you see the Kramapada, it is Namaha Shivaya and Shivaya Cha. So this is the difference between the 3 patas, the patas of the Samhita. So why we see these only these 3 patas? We know there are so many other pata kramas that we have heard about. Why we see these 3 pata kramas as the main part of the Samhita is because the rishis who have seen it have given to us in this format. So they have given us the Samhita and the Pada and the Kramapata for the Vedas. So that is why these 3 are the most important for the Adhyayana Krama for the Vedas. So let's come into Rigveda Samhita. Currently, we see that there are 3 Samhitas available right now: Shakala, Bhashkala, and Shankayana. And there are about 10,552 mantras. Mantra is basically a verse, we call it. So something like if you say in Gita, we say Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva, then that shloka, Pranyanam Deha Mashitaha, Pranapana Samayataha, Pajaminam Chaturvedam. That is a mantra. So like that, the Veda mantras are also like that. So each mantra is a couplet of verses. And there are 2 ways of classifying the Samhita. There is in the Rigveda. This is special to Rigveda. So the Mandala Krama and the Ashtaka Krama. And the Samhitas or the mantra portions also have, again, very specific to Rigveda. I think it's a speciality of Rigveda there. The mantra Dashtara, Rishi who saw the mantra, the chandas, the meter that is followed in the mantra, and the devata to which the worship is given. So because in the stuti is the main thing for that is in the Rigveda. So the devatas are worshipped through the Rigveda. So the devatas are mentioned in the mantra. So each mantra, if you have, say for example, Agni Suktam, then you say which Rishi found the Agni Suktam and what chandas the Suktam is in, and the devata is Agni for it. So this krama you can see across all the 10,000, all the suktams that are available in the Rigvedas. There are some suktams which may not have the Rishi definition, so they are called as Kila suktams that also appears in Rigveda, but most of the Samhita mantras will have the Rishi Chandas and the Devata. So go through the Rishis. So there are about 500 Rishis that are there in the Samhitas, the Rigveda Samhita. The mantra Drashtara, they are the Rishis who saw the mantra. They actually, I would say they absorbed the mantras and gave it to us. So when you chant a mantra or when one person chants a mantra, the Rishi has to be remembered. So that is a very important, what do you say, Kritagnyata, that thankfulness we give to the Rishi who discovered the mantra for us. These mantras are for our benefit of the mankind. So the mantra Dashtara Rishis are remembered, and this is very prevalent in the Rigveda Samhita. And we also have different types of rishis. So there is also a classification that we found out. There is a Maharishi, Rishi, and Rishi Putra. So Maharishi is Ishvara himself, and from Ishvara there are a lot of Manasa Putras that came out of it, like Bhrigu, Marichi, etc. They are all called as Maharishis. And then the sons of Maharishis are called Rishis. Brihaspati, Kashyapa, they are all Maharishis. And Rishiputras are the sons of the Rishis. So Vajasrava, Bharadwaja, and all those Rishis are Rishiputras. But regardless whether it's a Rishiputra or a Maharishi or a Rishi who found the mantra has its own power and it has its own value to it. The second part that we talk about is Chandas. So the Chand, what do the Chandas do? Chandas is a very, very important part of the Samhita portion of the Vedas. So the Chandas determines there are 7 major Chandas which we all of us would be chanting every day: Gayatri, Ushni, Ganashtub, Brihati, Pankti, Trishtub, Jagati. So those are the. So when you say Gayatri, it is 24-syllable word. It's a 24-syllable word. When you say Ushnik, it is a 28-syllable word. So when you say the mantra of Gayatri, Ushnik, Ganashtub, Brihati, Pankti, Trishtub, and Jagati, it goes in the same order. Add 4 to each other. So 24 is Gayatri, 28 is Ushnik, Anushtub is 32, Brihati is 36, Pankti is 40, Trishtub is 44, and Jagati is 48. So those many syllables will be there in the Chandas. So if you look at as mantra, like for example, that is in the Jagati Chandas. So it has 48 syllables in that. If you try to split that word. Some mantra, most of the mantras are in Anushtup Chanda. Like Purusha Suktam, the first 4 slokas, if you take it together, it will be probably in Anushtup Chanda. Sometimes it will be in Gayatri Chandas also. Sometimes, so depending on the mantras are classified into those 7, any of those chandas, the 7 chandas that are there. It will probably covering a wide range of mantras. However, there are chandas which are which need not follow this, right? For example, they don't have to be this 7. Sometimes you will see 23 syllables. Sometimes you can see 25 syllables. So there is a Nichvit Gayatri which is less than 24. Similarly, Nichvit Anushtup which will be less than, let's say you have 31 syllables. And like this, there are about 100 chandas that are available and across the Rigvedas, across the Rigveda. So we can see some different chandas available, although the 7 major are just more. And same sukta also can have multiple chandas. That also we can see in several sutras. So there is no necessity that one particular Devata suktam should be always in one chandas. It is not that way. And the Devatas, with regard to Devatas, several Devatas are worshipped like Agni, Indra, Varuna, Ratri, Devi, Vishnu, and so on. So sometimes you can see the same Devata can be described in many ways. For example, Ayurda Agni. When you say that is Ayurda Agni, that means he's a Devata there. When you say Rakshogna Agni, that means he's a Agni who is protecting it. So the Devata can have performed different duties, but it is the same Devata. But in that suktam, you worship him as a protecting Devata, or you use a beneficial Devata, and so on. We also see that multiple Devatas can be in the same suktam. Like Indragnam, when you say Indragnam, Indra and Agni are mentioned there. Another good example would be Bhagya Suktam. If you look at it, let's say Prataragnigam, Agni is there, Indra is there, Mitra Varuna is there, Pusha is there, Brahaspati, Brahmanaspati is there, Bhrigu is there. So multiple Devatas are worshipped in that Suktam. Similarly, that Suktam is also one of the examples where we can see multiple Chandas. So the first line of the Bhagya Suktam is in the Jagati Chandas. The other lines could be in the Trishtub Chandas or in the Ushash Chandas. So multiple Chandas can be in the same Suktam also. That is also possible. And we also see in the Rigveda, Agni himself is a Devata and Rishi. Agni is the major Devata in most of the Suktams also. And so we also see Agni as a Rishi who is the seer of that mantra and has given to us. And so, as we saw before, there are 2 ways of the Samhita is chanted in 2 different methods. One is called as the Mandala Krama, and another is called as the Ashtaka Krama. The Mandala Krama is the first one that was has been done as a collection of the Rigveda Samhita. So there are about 10 mandalas in Rigveda, which has 10,552 mantras that we talked about. So the mantras are the verses and they follow the chandas. So in the chandas is preserved there and the mantras are those verses that are there. So a group of mantras for a particular devata becomes a suktam. Sometimes it can be multiple devatas also, but the group of mantras are classified as a suktam. And a group of suktam based on a yajna viniyoga becomes a anuvaka. So in the Agnihotra, the Pratstavana, or the Madhyanika Savana, all those times, they chant a bunch of suktams. So they are all collected together and thus called as they are all called as an anuvaka. And the group of anuvaka is classified by a mandala. Mandala, in about 7 mandalas have rishis associated with it. 3 mandalas have multiple rishis associated with it. And that this division gives a logical measurement of completion during learning or a parayanam. So this basically, you can say, I finished the first mandala, I finished the second mandala, or I'm going to do the parayanam of the 4th mandala, and so on. So it's a logical measurement of completion. And the other thing is, all mandalas start with Agni Suktam, Agni as the devata for it, and then it's followed by Indra, then followed by the other devata. So that is how it is laid out. So how many mandalas are there? And we'll just say a little table of how they are organized. So if you take the first, there are 10 mandalas as we see here. So these are the 10 mandalas that I've seen here. And the first mandala, let's take the first mandala. It has 2006 mantras. If we go from here, so 2006 mantras, which form about 191 suttas and which have about 24 suttas, and is the first mandala. So the rishi is Shatarchinaha. So the Shatarchina is the rishi. Basically, there are several rishis who have given 100 mantras. A rishi who has given 100 plus mantras is called as a Shatarji. So in the first mandala of the Rig Veda, there are a lot of rishis who have given more than 100 mantras, and they are all called as a Shatarchinaha. So there are various. Basically, the answer to that is various, but the various is not only just various, but they are also the seers of 100 mantras. So those mantras are together classified in the first mandala. In the second mandala, Britasamada is a rishi, and he has 429 mantras, which is 43 suktas and 4 anuvakas. The third mandala, third rishi is Vishwamitra. He has 617 mantras, 62 suktas and 5 anuvakas. The fourth one is Vamadeva. These are all attributed to one rishi only. So Vamadeva is the main rishi. Vamadeva is a rishi there, Gautama Vamadeva. And he has 589 mantras, which is classified into 58 suttas and 5 anuvakas. The fifth one is Atri, has 727, 87 suttas and 6 anuvakas. Bharadwaja, 765 mantras, 75 suttas and 6 anuvakas. Vasishta has 841 mantras, 104 suttas and 6 anuvakas. Kanva has 1716 mantras, 103 suttas and 10 anuvakas. Now, when we come to the ninth mandala, we see that there is the only difference between the ninth mandala is the devata is one. His devata is Pavamana Somaha. That's a devata, but there are multiple rishis who have the mantras laid, have their seers of the mantras. So there are 1108 mantras in that, 114 suttams and 7 anuvakas. And the last one is the rest of the rishis. So various rishis are there, the last mandala of the Rig Veda. There are about 1754 mantras in that, 191 suttams and 12 anuvakas. They all together compose. They all together have the 10,552 mantras, which are 1,028 suttas and 85 anuvakas in total. So that is how the mandala krama is the mandala vibhaga of the Samhita portion of the Rig Veda. In the next is the ashtaka krama. In the ashtaka it's the advantage. What we see in the ashtaka is it's an equal distribution of these same mantras. So the mantras are classified as vargas. A group of vargas becomes a suktams. A group of suktams becomes adhyayas, and a group of adhyayas becomes a ashtaka. So the mantras are divided into equal parts, and there are 8 ashtakas. And so the advantage with that is, if for what we learned before, that a person has to learn, do a Nitya Adhyayam for Vedas every day in his life, all through his life, as soon as he learned it. Then if he says, I'm going to do it every day, 1 hour or 2 hours or whatever it is, he can say, I can do a parayana of 1 ashtaka or 1 adhyaya. So if I go through this, so you have 1370 mantras. So if you look at this 8 ashtakas, each of them will have approximately the same number of mantras. So it is not like it is 10,000. It's not 10,552 divided by 8. However, you will see the same thing, approximately close enough number of mantras. So the chanting time will be very, very similar to each other. Now, the reason is because why we have the split is because sometimes some suktams can be, if you are towards the end of the last sutram, then you have to attach it. They will just add the mantra to it, finish the sutram, and then go to the next sutram, and it goes to the next varga. So like that, all these numbers are very similar to each other. So mantras are 1370, 265 vargas, so 121 suttas. If you look at the numbers, are also almost similarly distributed, and there are 8 adhyayas in each of these. So if one person does 1 adhyaya parayanam every day, he does it for 64 days. He completes the Rigveda Samhitha Parayana, and then 65th day again he starts from the first, and he goes through the next 64 days. So like this, if somebody does it as a parayana throughout his life, there is no chance of forgetting a single part of this Rigveda, that whatever he learned. So this krama of the ashtaka krama is a unique thing to the Samhita portion of the Rigveda. Okay. So next, we see after Samhita, we go to the Brahmanas. So Brahmanas are the second portion of the section of the Rigveda, each Veda. The Brahmanas are not in the metrical format or the Chandas format. It is usually in a prose format. So what do the Brahmanas do? Because the Brahmanas are mainly used in the Yajna Vinayoga. So the Mimamsa Shastra, for example, does a Purva Mimamsa, when I say Mimamsa Shastra, the Purva Mimamsa Shastra does a big inquiry on the Brahmana portion of the Vedas, because Purva Mimamsa, scope of Purva Mimamsa is with respect to Yajnas. For the Yajna to be done, all the Yajna Karya, all the definition on how to do the Yajnas and how what are the necessary things that are needed, the Brahmana mantras give them as a description of how that should be done. Now, the Brahmana mantras also clarifies the mantras in the Samhita section. Sometimes you can see the meanings of the mantras are being clarified, if there are any doubts or anything like that. And we also see some Vyakhyan of the Veda. So that is also, we can see that in the Brahmana. So there are, I would say different varieties is a word I use, but I think different usage or different types, if I want to call that, for lack of a better word. Vida is the Vidaha is what we say in Sanskritam. So we say Ketur Nirvachanam Nenda Prashamsa Samshayo Vidhi Parakriya Purakalpa Vivadharana Kalpana Upamanam Dashaite Yetu Vidayoho Brahmanasyatu. The Jaimini Sutra, in the Sabara Bhashyam from Jaimini Sutram, is basically Acharya says that these are the 10 things that you can see in the Brahmana. So what are those 10 things? So sometimes you see Hetuhu, that is the instrument that are using it. So a good example for that is Shurprena Jahoti. So in the Yajna, when you say the mantra Shurprena Jahoti, Shurpaha is Muram in Tamil. I think in English it's called as the winnowing basket, where they take the paddy and take out the dust out of it. So when they say Shurpena Jahoti, basically in the Yajna, when the Havis is given, they give the Havis through the Shurpa, through the winnowing basket. They give it and they give it the offering. So that description of that is given in the Brahmana Vakyam. We also see etymology, that is a niruktam padam. Sometimes it's a description of a word. So we see usually we see that in the grammar, or sometimes we see in the nigantus where the nirvachanam of the word, how the word is originated. So he said one word which says tadadinam adinot dadinot daditva. So the word dadi is described. Dadi prine. So basically how the origin of the word dadi is there is also described in the Brahmana. Dadi means third. Then we see the things that are not allowed, ninda, censoring, for lack of better word. So that's sometimes we see that certain things you are not supposed to do it. So there is a yajna called Barhish. In that Barhi yajna, silver should not be given as an offering. So that is something they says, because there is a big story behind all those things. So Barhishi Radhakam Nayadayam is a vakyam, that is a Brahmana vakyam. And also we see that some devatas are praised, that how beautifully they give how fast, if you do this yajna, you will get the benefit right away. How fast will you get the benefit? Why you waste like a devata? Like how the wind is so fast, the devata also gives you the benefit so fast. So this is like a praising of the devata. So the praise also you can see there. Sometimes it establishes doubts. Nasadiya Suttam, this line is there. Adasvidasi, Uparisvidasi. So then, so you, whether it is something is under or something is above. So that it raises a doubt, and it can leave it as a doubt, or some bhashyas explain it later, or sometimes mantras themselves can explain the doubt also. Then strictly talking about the procedures. So when you follow these procedures, you get these benefits. So Darshapurna Masabhyam Swaruga Kamo Ejeta. So using do the Darshapurna Yajna. Darsha means Samavata, the Purna Purnami. So in those two yajnas, if you do as a part of the Agnihotra Krama, you can get the Swargam. That's a vakyam that is also there. And then sometimes you can see in the Brahmana vakyam, Indra Vikramahanna. So when Indra had to do so this is kind of an incidental story. So Indra had to do a yajna. I think he did a yajna called Tvashta yajna, and the Tvashta yajna, through that he protected himself. So if you do the Tvashta yajna, you can also protect yourself from these kind of problems. So that kind of an incidental stories are also there. Sometimes you also see the Puranam references. Ignena Ignamaya Janta Devaha. So the rishis understood the devas by offering the yajnas to them, and then they understood the mantras. So that's a Purana story that is mentioned there. And sometimes you also see transactional details. What are the Vyavahara business details that are happening? So in the yajna, for example, Yavanto Vai Sadasyaha Te Sarve Dakshinayaha. So when how much ever ritviks are there, you have to give them the dakshina. And also say that also has the measurement of, so in the if primary ritvik is there, give him this much dakshina. 50% of this is given to the secondary ritvik, and 25% of that is given to the third ritvik. And depending on how many days he is there in the yajna, he is supposed to be given this much dakshina. So all the dakshina varanama also is available in the Brahmana vakyams. And we also see examples. So to describe, there is a plant called Putikama. That Putikama plant, how does it look like? It looks like another plant called Somavalli, which is used as Soma. So it's Somavalli, Putikama. So that some comparison is given, so that this is how they say flowers look the same. So both the plants are there. Both the flowers look the same, and use that flower for this yajna. Use the plant from use the sap from the plant for this yajna and so on. So these are all the different vakyams that are available in the Brahmana. These are all Brahmana vakyams. Next is Aranyaka. In the Aranyaka is the third section of the Vedas. In the Vedas, some sections are supposed to be chanted in villages. Grame Adhyanam or Vanay Adhyanam. So basically, the Vedas are in communities, basically. It's not villages, may not be the right word. I think I should change it to communities. In Vedas, some sections are supposed to be chanted in communities, and some are supposed to be chanted in forests only. So there's a vakyam which is Aranya Adhita, Tapasvi Punyo Bhavati, Tapasvi Punyo Bhavati. So that vakyam basically says this mantras are supposed to be chanted in the Aranyas only, the forest only. This is used in the Vanaprastha ashrama. This acts as a bridge between Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. So because before you go to the Vedanta, the end portion of the Upanishad section of it, from the Karma Kanda, you transform to the Upanishad through the Aranyaka mantras. So what is Karma Kanda? I think I didn't use that word before. The first two sections of the Vedas, Samhitha and Brahmana, together form the Karma Kanda, because the Grahastha has to be doing the karmas, right? The Grahastha, the Brahmachari has to learn, his karmas to learn, but the Grahastha will do the yajnas for the benefit of the society. So that's the main role for the Grahastha there. So he'll be doing the karmas there. So, and up to his point where he's done with all the karmas, and when he gets to a point where he's transferring his knowledge and his karmas to his children, then he goes to the forest. So during this time, so there are mantras that he has to observe, but he would have learned the mantras when he's during his brahmacharya time itself. So because in that time, nobody will go to the Aranya, the forest, then don't learn mantras there. That is not how it works. Usually you do the mantra, learn the mantras at the younger age, and you apply the mantras in the when the Vanaprastha ashrama starts. So the philosophical and when the karma kanda is done, mostly when during that time, the people will, the person who's doing it will be focused on doing the karma kandas, but the tattva, the philosophical concept of the karma kanda is not present in the Brahmana or the mantra on the Samhita, but it will be present in the Aranyaka section. So sometimes you can see the discussions over there. It also takes you to the next step of the sannyasa ashrama. So the words like vairagyam, how to get the vairagyam, how to gain all the knowledge for the adhyatmika vidya and so on, all those entry level steps, you will see that in the Aranyakam. So the most important point is it usually is taken up after one experiences ups and downs in his life in the grihastha. So that time the mind also, then he has a lot of experiences in his life. Then he can say, okay, then based on that, rather than forcing this on a brahmachari to go to a tattva vichara, this may be much easier as a person after doing the grihastha. He takes up this and practices the Aranyaka mantras. The mantras are learned at the Gurukulam as a brahmachari. So I just combined the Brahmana and the Aranyaka sections of the Rig Veda. So it is spread across between the texts. Also, one more point is, let's say the Veda book is, let's say it's 100 pages. It's not first 25 pages, the Samhita, next 25 pages. So sometimes you can see the mantras spread across all over the place, but so the text can be available in different shakas. And the Brahmana and Aranyaka, today we have Aithareya Brahmanam and Kaushitiki Brahmanam available to us. And same thing with Aithareya Aranyaka and Kaushitiki Aranyaka are available to us. In the Aithareya Brahmanam, there are about 40 adhyayas. So those are the piece of information that we have on the Rig Veda side of the Brahmana and Aranyaka. And the last section of the Vedas is the Upanishads. So in Raghuvamsa, Kalidasa says, Shaishave Abhyasta Vidyanam, Yogane Vaisheshyam, Vardake Munivrittinam, Yoganande Tanutyajam. So this is the description that he gives about the kings of the Raghuvamsa, all the kings, how valorous those kings were. And what did they do? In their childhood, when they were Shaishave, Abhyasta Vidyanam, all the Vidya that they wanted to learn, they learned. And Yogane Vaisheshyam. So when they become a youth, and they went and conquered kingdoms. They got material gains. They got all the better things that in their life. They enjoyed their life. Vardake Munivrittina. So once after that, then they pass it on to their sons. They go to they become elderly person, and they get a Munivrittina. They do the starting the ascetic life. They then go to the inquiry mode. And when they leave the body, tanutyajam. So when they leave the body, what do? They merge with the Ishvara. Yoganante. So the yoga means that they merge with the Ishvara towards the end of the life. So this is similar to the four ashramas that we talked about. So Vanapra, in the same thing, we say Brahmacharya, then Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa ashrama. But if in a king's life is slightly different, so that's why I took this shloka from that point onwards. But it's a similar concept. So towards the end of the section of the Vedas, it is called as the Upanishads appear there. They're also known as the Vedanta. A person adopted Vedanta should have a thorough knowledge of the Karma Kanda, which is very important. So because without the knowledge of Karma Kanda, without going through the Karma Kanda and their understanding of the meanings and how the structure is laid out, the knowledge of the Vedanta, directly jumping into it, may not help. Must be Anushtiya. This must be a practitioner. And it's also called as the Adhyatmika Vidya. It is learned under a competent, the philosophies are learned under a competent guru. Upanishads generally talk about the 2 or 3 major important points. If I want to say about Upanishad, it's a Jiva Ishvara Aikya. So how the jiva merges with the Ishvara, how ignorance is removed, avidya is removed, and jnana is obtained. And other thing the Upanishads talk about is a Shritik Krama, how the existence has been created, and what are the elements that go into a creation of an existence, and how it gets created, and how it finally gets absorbed, and then how this whole cycle of Srishti creations happens. These are the key points that are happening in the Upanishad. In the Rig Veda, the main Upanishad is Aithareya Upanishad, is one among the 10 Maha Upanishads. So the 10 Maha Upanishads are Ishakena Kata Prashna Munda Mandu Ketitiri, Aithareyam Chantogyam Brahadharanikam Tata. So out of the 10 Maha Upanishads, the Aithareya Upanishad comes from the Rig Veda. The other interesting point, as I said before, it is actually a part of the Aithareya Aranyaka, the Aranyaka section of the Rig Veda. This Upanishad is there. So Acharya did 4 Mahavakyams. Out of the 4 Mahavakyams, the Mahavakyam Prajnanam Brahma is coming from the Aithareya Upanishad. The Aithareya Upanishad discusses about how the Atma did a sankalpa to create the Srishti. So Atmanaha Srishti Sankalpaha. So how Atma thought how to create a Purusha. Then we created a world, then create a Purusha, how the different parts of the and each Shakti, how the Atma installs in the Purusha, and then the feelings of the Purusha, like thirst, hunger, and everything, that how they are created, and then the soul creation, and then the birth, rebirth. These are the subject matters of the Aithareya Upanishad. I think with this, I conclude my talk on understanding Rig Veda. I hope you understood, you took something good out of this. And again, I have to, with my humble namaskarams to our Acharya who gave us all this information. If you have any doubts, definitely contact us through info@kksofmidwest.org. You can send us an email. If you know me, please contact me. If I can clarify your doubt, it will be good. Or if you can clarify my doubt, if I made a mistake, definitely I will humbly accept whatever is the right thing. And I hope I did some justice to what I did today. Dhanyawad. Setu, sorry. Ashira?
Looks like Setu dropped.
Okay. You want to do the conclusion? Oh. Okay, Setu, we completed it actually. So.
Okay, thank you, Padmanabhan. Dhanyawad. I'm sorry, I thought I had a brief pause in the video, but looks like you completed it in that brief interim period. On behalf of KKSF, thank you, Padmanabhan Mahodaya, for a wonderful walkthrough and also a very, very simple, lucid description of the Rig Veda in an interactive format. Sage Vyasa classified the 4 Vedas. Likewise, you took basic Rig Veda, in fact, starting from Vedas, the definition of Veda, going back to the Samhitha etymology, breaking it down to various explanations of the meaning. Starting from there, you gave us a good explanation of the term Veda, and then from there, Rig Veda, and how it was handed down through various Rishi, the Guru Parampara lineage of Rig Veda, from say Veda Vyasa to Paila Muni, and then so on. Very informative, and as always, the the background behind so much of this coming from various Samskritam suktas and other gems really hidden in the treasure of our Vedas and Upanishads really comes forth through your wonderful lecture. The nice usage of slides and pictorial representation and the mathematical breakdown of, for example, the ashtakas and so on and so forth in the form of tables is also very nice and something easy for us to go back and hopefully better educate ourselves on. So personally, very beneficial, and obviously your command over Sanskrit language and is a big benefit, and use of very good pictorial slides is also a very big benefit to us. And once again, on behalf of KKSF, our sincere thank you to you for putting this material together, and we look forward to more such descriptive sessions from you. I know you have a great vast amount of treasures of knowledge, in fact, that we hope we can get a further glimpse of in the future. Thank you again, and I also like to thank all our viewers who have joined us today for this wonderful satsangam, and people who are supporting us with your viewership, with your comments and feedback. Please continue to do so, and we will, with the blessings of our acharyas, we hope we can keep continuing these monthly lecture series and benefit from all the other learned people around us. And let's pray for the blessings of our acharyas for this Kamakoti Parayana Mandali program to continue. And thank you all. And again, thank you, Padmanabhan Mahodaya, and thanks to all our volunteers also who make this happen every month. We look forward to your satsangam again next month. Jai Jai Shankara, Hare Shankara.